All right, so this is my name is Christiano Ken, and right now I have my homie Craig with me. And this all starts off because Craig uh, welcomed himself to be quoted, and I'm going to quote him as we start a conversation for consideration of so many people around the world that have engaged in this consideration. So his quote is, "Nonverbal styles of music and cinematics are really going to shine through as the future of commercial music. Why? Because of its meditational benefits. Now, maybe, just maybe, the answer really does lay in vibration. And trust me when I write this, it's 100% physical for sure. Have you ever asked yourself this question? Why do you think the BBC invests so much money into hip hop and rap? A potential answer? Because it's angry and supports an angry agenda? What other answers could this potentially be for you? And can we all agree everything has a reason, especially in today's world? So I'm gonna let you jump in and elaborate on that. Let's rock.
So, hey everyone. There's been a few, let's say, experiences that I've gone through recently, especially to do with my radio show that I've been plugging and that I've been doing sort of near on 10 years now. And the radio show itself is focused around hypnotism, therapy, meditation, essentially self-thought, just asking lots of questions on what it is you like, why it is you like it. But the reason why I made this particular type of comment is simply because growing up in an area and understanding the frequency, and also being newly introduced to by yourself the difference of channels between 432 and the other variants, as well as the 440 hertz, as above as too. Understanding that these channels they communicate, is what do they communicate? And growing up in an area where I've predominantly had to communicate through sound, through the vibration coming through my own voice, I've begun to understand that music is essentially a trigger to a thought. And when we look at the whole, I'm going to use the example of London. I grew up in London. So if you look at London dynamically as a musically industrial city, and you look at the placements of where everything is placed and everything is happening individually for a reason. So you'll find that commercial and hip hop, which is currently being absolutely plastered by the BBC, with the likes of you have your Stormzy's and your even Eminem's going and producing this meaning within its sound.
Right.
If you look at the stereotype that comes, and this is perception now. This is what I've grown to learn through my experience of growing up, is that when you look at the stereotypes within music, it's not color-based, it's not skin color-based at all. It's purely based around a mindset. So like, as I was saying, and I've said to many other people, like for instance, if you look at my experience, I've loved trance music. Trance itself, the word trance is to entrance somebody, is to hypnotize them, is to take them away into a world that's not theirs at this moment in time, which is beautiful in itself, but it's also an excuse for some people. That plays at around about 140 beats per minute, high octane, high energetic music. I grew up in a high energy lifestyle with a dad that owns an adopted father that owns a business. I grew up in the army, which was 190 miles an hour all the time. And then I've grown up in a business in recruitment, and I've grown from there. It's 100 miles an hour all the time. And now I've stepped away from the world and I've come down and I'm now listening to this 60 BPM stuff, cinematic, purely with sounds. My character's evolving. My characters, and it's kind of leaning into what don't quote me on this, but I believe it was Tesla says, we are what we listen to. So in some cases it would be, I listen to music as my teacher, but some cases would be listening to a voice, like someone listening and watching this video right now would be listening to the tones in my voice as a teacher. It's a frequency that when you lock into and understand. So going back to the whole London conversation, London itself is split into specific areas. So you have Piccadilly, Trafalgar Square, full of hip hop commercial. You have, let's look at Liverpool Street. You look at Shoreditch, it's full of Motown, it's full of disco. Then you look over towards Angel and Islington, it's full of house and full of techno. And then you go out towards Brixton, and you've got hard house, drum and bass. It's all isolated in its own different areas. And when you begin to, and this is where maybe the psychological reference understanding comes in, is that when you understand why the music is what it is, you can then begin to understand the person. It's going down a route here where it opens up the question is, why does the BBC invest so much money into hip hop and rap? Because it potentially does carry an angry message. Well, the music isn't angry, but the toxic words that come within it are. So let's break down a lot of Eminem's. Okay, Eminem's music. I fell in love with Eminem when I was young. And like most of the kids in that age, because he was saying stuff that really was, to me, I was angry, clearly. And now I don't listen to that as much anymore, but I can still understand that the message within that, it does carry an angry, violent, resentful, aggressive undertone that allows people to fall into that frequency range. So again, understanding for me, and I must revert this to a conversation with my mentor from university, where I began to study a master's degree in sound engineering, that he was telling me that it's to do with tension. And the whole reason why we've expanded upon 432, which was originally from the Baroque era, which is originally what we used to listen to music, it's simply as a result, because we've wanted music louder and louder, the tension has gently crept it up a hertz and a hertz, which explains a lot, because it resembles a lot of tension in people. So when I make my comment of non-verbal styles of music and cinematic are really going to shine through in the future, why? Because it allows for the meditation of oneself and the understanding of oneself, rather than, and what you said in your last video I watched with that guy from Newcastle, from England, you said that resentful frequency, that tension in the frequency, is allowing for certain people to rest within that channel. Where if with 432 hertz, if we can pull upon that reduce that tension within those frequency ranges, then are we then able to essentially coerce the angry into becoming peaceful?
No.
Just through vibration. I kind of went off on a bit of a tangent there.
But no, there are many things that you brought up, many points, and I'll break down what came out. So one of them is that's key that you brought out with your teacher is the recognition of tension. That is an amazing thing that's not spoken about when we think about the difference between two frequencies, 432 and 440, is that to reach the frequency of 440, the tension has to be increased on whatever will be vibrating to reach that vibration, that resonance. And so 432, it's funny because one of the things that people in house and trance, as well as hip hop, and anyone that plays the bass, they love the frequency of the bass at 432 because it's resonating lower, in addition to being in tune with your frequency. That's like, you get two benefits. You get like, whoa, it sounds good and it feels good. So tension is key. And it's funny because if you apply it literally, the more tension you have in your life, the less peace or calm you have. So it's funny, when you initially posted your statement, I didn't even think along this line of the conversation. And so I appreciate you going into that recognition of the word tension, which will now, I'll keep that in this conversation when I bring it up to others, because that's key. Tension is the key word.
He said there was a specific phrase he said to me was tension is stress.
Yeah. I was trying not to say that, but yeah, it is. It is. And so another thing that you brought up, and I want to elaborate on more. So we go back to, why is the BBC acquiring or listening or licensing more hip hop and rap? I can look at that in the world. Hip hop is the most commercial genre of music. It's overtaken rock and pop significantly around the world collectively. And
I totally disagree with that, but okay.
Wait, I'm just thinking financially. I'm thinking of what generates the most money is hip hop.
there is a reason why every single commercial hip hop artist did eventually make a house track.
Go for it. What do you think it is?
It's so for me, house 4x4 resembles our tribal rhythms.
And
For me,
hip hop is 4/4. It's just at different BPM. So we're still looking at the syncopated beat. Both of them do it. What do people like in hip hop? It's the snare and the kick. And what do you like in the house? The bass and the pop. So we're still listening to the similar codes, just different intonations of that pace. It's the same pump, but we're using different tones.
You're thinking musically. If I was to listen to hip hop, I would listen to beat vocal free hip hop, because that would be what I would want to write to and to question myself.
Because you're creative. And that's the difference, is that when someone feels in that space with other thoughts and possibilities, if it's not pushing you to think or consider, you're just like, I'm not really not listening to this or there. I'm the same way. That's why it's funny you say that. The moment I hear something that has nothing that is really grabbing with the words, I'm only locked in on the instrumental. I'm like,
so that would be my point to prove that the music is propaganda, because it's creating a reliance for people to rely on their other people's thoughts rather than their own. Which is why we're in this issue in the first place, because you tell in your last video, we need to rely on ourselves, not other people. And lyrics provide a tool for people to rely on other people's thoughts to tell them what they think, rather than them to think about what they think about themselves.
Now, that same thing, and we'll keep it on music. That same thing would apply to books that become movies, or just visuals. Visuals that come from words are no different than what we're saying now, in a way, because the vibration went into the creation of the picture with the intention of you making your own projection. But the moment it becomes a film or a play, it's a static version of someone else's depiction. And so instead of having a million different versions of how this book could be interpreted, if those million people go look at this film, they now have been consolidated into one common perception. It might not be how they locked in on it, but now they can all relate to this one perspective and either get locked into or to build from it. So
where does the relation come from?
That is what it is. No, it is yeah, it starts right there.
It's it's a question that I was asking my mentor this morning, is this is going to get relation to music, is our feelings are our feelings receptors that have been manipulated to believe one thing, but there is a total. I'm probably not wording that correctly.
No, Craig, you're right. You stopped and you were right on tangent. Let me answer it, because I know what you said, and correct me if I'm not answering the right question. The frequencies that affect us put us in a reality that is not here. They are projections and a net that cast and keep us in a box. No different than if you set up a perimeter around a certain area and put a frequency in, you may not be able to see the vibration, but whatever it's tuned to cannot leave this invisible barrier because of that frequency. And that is literally what vibrations do to our thoughts, our imaginations, our body, our DNA, and our reality.
I understand the whole problem, reaction, solution. So a problem has been created, a reaction has now been lived, experienced.
True.
We need a solution. Let me ask a question to you. What is the biggest industry, the biggest earning industry on this planet? What's the biggest earning industry that earns the most amount of money and wealth on this planet?
Fear. Fear.
Yes, fear. So if we can find the channels that are channeling fear, there must be channels that communicate love. There must be. Like, I know that's kind of stating the obvious, but that's for the point of the viewers. Because if the channel currently is, and the industry is fear, if there is an industry of love out there and you portray that, fear can't manifest any further through the law of attraction.
There is a balance that naturally kicks in. And this is why the key always comes back to you. As much fear-based stuff as there is a juxtaposition. As much love-based stuff as there is, there's a juxtaposition. And always in the middle is where the truth, where the center, where you would get the most value, because everything swings back to the center. There will always be a middle that encompasses all. And so
Then
right
how?
now,
Oh, sorry, no, sorry.
right now, the inundation of fear is because it's effective. You and I know that there's not a lack of love, and also there's not a lack of fear. What there is lack of is a lack of the ability to stand on what you resonate with versus what the outside tells you should be or will support you. People want
I
to be
must,
supported and stand with the group. And it
yeah.
isn't love music. It's like you can ostracize love music with, I don't want to hear that hippie stuff. I want to hear something real that hits me hard. And it's like, doesn't need to be that. I make the same music and vibrations and BPMs with intentional, purposeful messages that can fit right into the playlist of what has become popular, what has become associated with low vibration, what is associated with 440. You can slip my stuff right in and just slowly add this medicinal, purposeful, intentional transition. We just need to do it. Because right now, the people you're talking to, since our first conversation about 432, dude, just the explosion and listening to you play the piano the other day, it's like, dude, it's there. We have reached the critical mass point where 432 hertz will bleed
Before
in.
we go too far off track, I really need to interrupt because the conversation is going to leave me in a second. But I must call you out on something you've said in a previous video with someone else to what you've just said just now. So your belief, the world goes round and it always has its central point. So that means we must believe that everything goes round and comes round to the same point. Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm saying that everything has an equal opposite, and so by default there is a center. That's what I'm saying. And
Right,
in the center, you can see both and choose how to respond, how to act, but you realize what is. There is no left or right. It's just relative to this position, we'll call that right. Relative to this position, we'll call that left, but it just is.
Okay. No, that's the answer to my question. I was kind of thinking you meant, because you said something in a last video that really struck a chord with me, and I've actually been using it with people that I know since, and it's the word revolution.
Oof. Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah,
you did. And you said about revolution and how it revolves.
Yeah.
Revolution always revolves back to the same point, which was kind of what I thought you meant by this.
Oh, yeah, no. Okay, I got you. Cool.
Yeah.
No, there is a center. When we talk about the areas where you discussed, you can go and know that here you're going to hear soul music, here you're going to hear disco, here you're going to hear that. And you say it's not attached to race, religion, sex, culture. It's literally how the areas have matured, almost like individual cultures. Do you explicitly associate hip hop and rap music with more violence in the area than heavy trance and soul music? Can you say there's an explicit difference in your experience?
I would say that there's an explicit difference between rap, yes, not so much hip hop. Hip hop's music. Rap isn't. Rap is poetry. So first of all, rap isn't part of the music industry. It's an associate of the music industry, but comes from the literature industry. So when you say absolutely right, yeah, that's fair. When I listen to it, it's more about the types of words you're hearing. So I commonly associate hip hop with lyrics of violent material.
Wow. And that's not where it started. It's so funny.
But that's so for me, my understanding that hip hop is predominantly East Coast or West Coast. One is predominantly disco based and the other one is predominantly breakbeat based.
And disco bass and funk bass would be the West Coast, and breakbeat bass would be the East Coast. That's funny. Keep going.
No. New York is very housey based. Well, you have to understand.
You switched it, really?
Chicago. Well, house music came from Chicago.
Yeah. I know. I grew.
And it grew up and it went into New York. So would have naturally have had that straight just beat to it, where the hip like the far west was very much more trip hop based, very broken beat, very down tempo. I always thought that the West Coast gave birth to like Left Field and Moby.
Wow.
That's what
Okay.
I have always been under the illusion of. So, and then where you come up from, like, so the East Coast would have been basically leverages of Masters at Work,
Okay.
Frankie Knuckles.
Yeah. I like the fact that you know that history. And I guess we could go on that. That'd be a whole nother discussion on how that progressed. I associate
I'll show you. Question. So many questions.
because of the tangents and just the love and history we have with music and association. That's why I really appreciate our exchanges in general when time allows this to happen.
Yeah.
But I do want to stick with the violence of hip hop, not rap, or the violence of rap, not hip hop. Correct? It's the rhetoric that comes to the words of rap. It's the storytelling and intentions. What are the subject matters that you associate rap with nowadays? Like, what is the BBC putting into play, whether people know it or not?
You know what? I have to be really honest about when this UK hip hop came through, and this mumbles, I think it's what it's called.
Yeah.
I stopped listening altogether. I physically couldn't listen to the words going. I'm so protective of what's going in my ears. I physically can't put myself through that divisive mentality. I'm not going to call it a racist mentality. It's a divisive mentality, and racism is a form of division, so it does fall into that same category. But it's that whole attitude that it's I'm bigger than you. You got to show. It's basically dick swinging, public dick swinging. And that's what I see hip hop as right now, as a tool to just get words out. I don't see hip hop as a creative ambiance of sound like the whole Left Field, Uncle, Shiloh, all of these proper names that were doing for God knows how long, that were actually showcasing the musical resampling basis of hip hop. Not the production technicalities of hip hop, but the resampling, giving life back to old 50s and 60s and 70s records through a new form of drumming. That was essentially why hip hop was born, because it was born out of resampling, like techno was born out of resampling. So it gave birth to that, but then suddenly got manipulated as a tool where, okay, well, we can sacrifice the technical ability of the music production and resampling, and we'll just sacrifice that for simplicity so the words on top can be controlling. Am I wrong?
I'm not gonna go wrong or right. Your assessment is an observation that I can see. However, then there are many more possibilities and realities. I will say that capitalism is the next biggest market outside of fear, and capitalism is what took over every industry. If I want to walk you through just my similar take on what took place, is the DJ lost his power. Her power. When the DJ lost the influence, that is when music really shifted and the flow. But let me walk you through the story, because
I want you to change
the disc jockey used to receive and sift through scores and scores of music, coming through a set number of music studios and key players who wanted an entry. And so I'm still talking about at the time of vinyl, tapes had started to creep in, but here we go. And so the DJ literally had a unique playlist. Everyone was playing or hoping to play something that someone else didn't have. So you went because this person truly created a movement for you. They weren't being controlled by a higher power. It wasn't about they're being told to play this. And yes, there was some pay for play. But in the end, it was like, this individual is playing new stuff. I'm loving it. I'm liking it. And you actually followed the DJ's movement of the music. Fast forward to when radio stations started to really blow up and the corporate structure started to really see what they had access to. DJs left the clubs. They would work the clubs in the night, and because of their voice and movement, they got access to the radio stations and bigger broadcasts and different events. And so then it was like they started to get suggestions from the upper heads. It was like, hey, we really like what you're doing. Could you play a little less of this? or
So
a little more of this, and that began to build up more and more and more, where before you knew it, not only was the DJ not saying what they wanted to say, they weren't playing what they wanted to play. They were playing within the realm of a playlist given to them, dictated and narrated by the powers that be, that gave them an audience, a day-to-day job, and the income and power, or an assumed amount of power, that when they looked up, there are no more DJs.
that kind of proves your first statement is, did the DJs lose the power or did they give up the power? Because I can tell you right now, these
There's
DJs,
no difference.
now there is a difference, because
Go for
I'm
it.
still sifting through 4 days worth of promos that come into my email box. I'm still sifting through, spending days and days looking for the music that nobody else is playing.
Good.
I'm still sifting through and introducing the music and talking it and keep it. There's that, to me, is an excuse for a DJ to give up to the higher power, to give up to something that he's not himself. Yet you are right, BBC have stepped in and gone, right, I want you to play that. But the DJ gives up that power to be part of that process, when in actual fact, he doesn't realize how powerful he is to create his own process. And that's where I step in, because now I host my own radio show on one of the oldest radio state platforms on the internet. They were the first online radio show. So, and I plug my meaning through that way. Okay, there's, in actual fact, there is no give or take. It's, we love what you do, keep doing it. And if they didn't, I would put the music elsewhere. Okay, I sacrifice money and I sacrifice technology and the ability to play to millions. But so what? So what?
Now we're talking about individual choices. That's you being an individual versus all of the cogs in the machine. No different than the choice to be a part of the financial system. It's actually a choice once you see the game. But the hardest choice is leaving, because it's harder to see the way out than it when you never saw the way in. You literally woke up playing. And so the DJs and the people that make music now exist in a world where it's no different than searching for a record label, because people still don't realize you don't need that. They're still like, hey, I want to get signed. I want this, that, and the third. And it's like, whoa, that's a construct that's been built in and it's so ingrained. So yeah, that power structure, people desire power. People want to be heard. And you do.
Depends on what type of power they crave. True. That's for sure. When I was down in London and started studying for my master's, I did a semester and a half, 2 semesters I did before I left. What I learned down there about the musical process and the whole, we make music for other people. There's never been an occasion where a team has not been involved in making a track successful. Never. Not once, ever. Whether it be the music producer writing the producer, then getting mastered by an engineer, and then getting promoted by a sales rep, and then getting signed by a manager. There's 4 people involved. So
there's one anomaly, and I would say to look deeper just in case. His name is Russ. And Russ, yeah, and he's new for me. He popped up, and it's in his videos and interviews, he actually brags real heavily about the fact that he writes, records, produces, mixes, and masters everything himself. And he stayed independent, makes hundreds of thousands a month, but he's a really braggadocious, arrogant, almost in the sense of trying to antagonize you to say, hey, you can do this too. Why don't you just go do this? I did it. But it's the way he says it. No different. The messenger and the message can get caught up, but his antagonizing state of saying, you can do this too. I did it. Look at what I have. I get it. I understand what he's trying to say. But Russ, RUSS, if you check up his history or any of his podcasts, it's interesting.
Okay.
But there aren't many. There aren't many that did it that can do it, because it is a collective share many times.
I think it was, I think you're referring to is people can do it. Like, people can write a track and do a really good track, and they can do it. They can do the fucking work really well, and excuse my French, but they can absolutely smash it. But that's still then got to be promoted and get to the millions of people. And that is a job you can't do by yourself.
This is now you're entering this thing that does not affect anything that I do. And you know this. I'm speaking directly from here. I don't make anything for millions of people. At this point, I make things that come through for source that are the source of millions of people. And if they ever catch the vibration, so be it. My only role in this whole process is to plant the seed of consideration. And I appreciate when people meet me, they're like, hey, dude, this needs to go everywhere. All it takes is you to share it with a few, and just one by one by one. I'm not interested in millions of people getting it. I'm interested in the right people getting it, however it comes to you. Like I only have to make it. The next step is someone else's, and that's that collective process. That's the other step of looking at how you look at it.
That's where I come through the changes. That's why I believe the whole. And actually that leads very, very elegantly back into my status, is that where I believe that the future of sound is without vocals, is that makes that possibility incredibly realistic, that one person can do one full project by himself and go against the light that's governing the fear. Say the light that's governing the fear, the dark that's governing the fear.
Are we talking the fear of success, the fear of completion, the fear of capacity to complete something? Like what fear? And why does it take one person to make something? Like the beauty of music is the collaborative effort of souls and passion resonating, and it just builds. That's why a choir is so lovely. Everyone doesn't have an angelic voice, but you put them together and it is heavenly. No, and the bigger it gets, it's like, it's just whoa, and it resonates. It's the power. I have so much choir arrangements in my music and my live compositions because it's easy to sing along to, and everyone is like a Care Bear stare. Everyone's like singing along and they don't know why. And even if you're not singing, the person singing behind you is sending a vibration and an intention that's going right through you. So why do you see value in, or empowerment in the ability to do it alone? Because doing it alone is not the same as doing it for the purpose of reaching millions and going through the machine. So why do you see so much value in it being alone and the power of just instrumental music, harmonics? Got you.
Yeah, no, it's a thoughtful answer. I need to think about the answer for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
In this case, I don't think it's a power to be done by itself. I think it's a great level of understanding to do a project by yourself.
Like Prince. Prince was another one.
Yeah, yeah. Music, the actual core product itself, he was fully involved in, and he did himself. But obviously, the external stuff that comes with it. But then you get a raw, full copy of him within his music, and that's what you get with an individual. Okay, yes, there are bands that come together, but I'm not saying there is a power in individualism. There is an exponential power in group, and that's kind of why I said that when you go down to university, you see what's happening. So then this is maybe when you're talking about the fear is still pushing indirectly the governance of an icon, which is one person, which is the fear that they can't look after or do it themselves because that person is the only person that can do it. So when we go through to understanding the power of doing the music by yourself, you understand the power of an individual, that once you understand that true individual's power, then it can come together as a group and exponentially improve that power. But you have to understand the individual first. That's where the true power comes through. But when you're talking about the creativity of the music industry, what music industry has never been made as an individual, but yet the icons are individuals.
What killed the creativity of the music industry?
Sorry?
What killed the creativity of the music industry?
The creative industry, the creative industry isn't dead.
The creative industry isn't dead. What killed the creativity of the music that we get out of the industry?
I don't think anything has killed it. I just think we are being misdirected to listen to certain stuff when there's plenty of other stuff out there that we can listen to.
You answered my question thinking you changed the answer. The question, my question was, what killed the creativity being pushed out of the music industry? Like there's creativity all inside, but it's not coming out. It's being funneled and boxed as it like the education system. It comes in truly creative, raw, pure, and it tries to create a standardized product. So in the middle, what killed that process? Because when the music industry started, there were so many different genres exploding. There were different riffs. There were different there was so much experimentation. We can look at Jimi Hendrix as one. There was so much experimentation with so many things. Ray Charles is another, taking gospel music, adding it to the blues, like, and then something happened. Was it too many people looking at idols, mimicking what they heard?
Give you the one word: capitalism.
I agree. There you go.
It is that. And this is where I
okay. So remove that from the music, and then what happens?
Well, this is where, and I've spoken to you about this before, is how can we turn a product of music back into a product of tangibility, where you can actually have that as a unique product just for you, rather than a duplicated product that is given to millions of people. So, okay, a playlist is something, but that's not true enough. I'm going to refer it back to my martial arts, when I used to do door-to-door martial arts selling, and I've done it martial arts for most of my life until I became a true adult. And I used to knock on people's doors, and they used to give them a membership card that was there, that was tangible, that was there with their name on it. It used to make them feel unique. They paid a little bit of money for it, but that was their name on a card. It's not just saying, oh, we're going to put you in a system and we're going to write your name on a card, going to give you a membership, blah, 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 blah. And that was a feeling that just made, it's a little bit psychologically operating, but it's that whole, can we get music back to how it was, where, vinyl was vinyl. It was vinyl because it was unique, and there was not many of them made. It was limited. It was hard to get hold of.
It's funny you say that. Keep going.
It does, but I can't think of how to get music back to that level. That's where the teamwork comes in. I understand the need of it, and I understand that it will.
One sec, keep going. I can
hear you. It would be great for a lot of people, but I don't know how to get that. I don't know what to start thinking of, because music for me has always been selfish. At the end of the day, music for me up until now has always been a selfish need. It's always been a way of.
Actually, one of the things that you passed through was tangible and value. And you referenced something that I think is still of value in this present world, the world coming, is what can you give people? And so here's something that I made called Money Can't Kill Music. That song that introduced us, okay, that's in here. Yeah. The song coming out on October 31st, the full moon, is in here. The artwork that I've been showing you, that okay, this is an actual limited edition product. But that's the cover art that you saw from the video. You didn't know this. This is the artwork for the vinyl. So wow. I've done everything that I'm trying to say. I'm not doing it in theory. The lyrics are also in there. That's all the characters, each verse. I'm trying to impart this. That's why we connect, because you're saying it, I'm doing it, and it's available. Now, how do we get it to the people? I just need to make it aware that it's available. And when you want something, when you're interested in something, you make time for it, you go get it, you find a way to get it, and that's it. I'm not prostituting myself for people's awareness, but I know that it's out there. And all you have to do is click share, or share the way in conversation. When you like something, you talk about it. You put it, you're like, have you heard? Have you seen? This is an available product. There are only maybe 200 left, all hand composed, but this is a feat, and it's an amazing art book. But I'm with you. I think tangible, personable products are key, which is why I look forward to the explosion of creative concepts that come out of this COVID stoppage of movement, because that required creatives that were even in the influx of just being in the industry of business. Like, yeah, I play 4 gigs a week, la, 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 I do this. It's like, whoa, you don't even love music anymore. You don't even practice and play original. You're in the business of music. I've seen so many of them now working on albums that they always wanted to work on, now practicing again and working on compositions that they wanted to finish, and also thinking of different ways on which to get out and present themselves creatively. So I'm excited about this new way. But yes, I agree that vinyl, physical products of purposeful consideration. The problem with products now is that everything comes so quickly. It's just how fast can we get this and make it before this artist, this movement, this moment just fades, because there is no value in it long term. It's just people don't have an interest in it.
Yeah.
That's because the message, and once people really catch on to what it is, it's like, that was then. There are these moments and these sounds and these movements that don't ever end, that we still sing, we still know to this day. And when we hear something, we know certain songs that if we hear in the present, we're like, that'll be around for a while. That's a timeless tune. And so it just
the people in, and I say this, the biggest record labels out there that govern the music industry, they are aware of that, and that's essentially where you're going with the killing of music, the creativity, is because they've realized there is an algorithm, and they have just got groups of people making music after the same thing, using that same. I've seen it. I've seen 5 rooms of people in groups of 5 writing music, 4 or 5 tracks a day, every single session. And you're like, well, hang about. At what point then do you sit and go, well, what does this mean to you? What does this mean to me? That's kind of why and that's going back to my saying why I find selfish music, because why do I love the sounds that I love? Why do I find myself confiding in the frequencies that I confide in?
That's a good question to ask. That's nice that you pose that question to yourself. Yeah,
all the time. It can be overwhelming how much I sit here and go, why am I doing this?
I do the same thing for people that look at the world and they complain, and they look at the youth and they complain, and they look at the children and they may say something, and they look at the people around them. And I'm like, hey guys, what are you listening to? Without even connecting it to, I'll ask people what's on their playlist, and they'll send stuff, and I get it. It's popular. I hear the beat, but I also hear the lyrics and the message. And I'm like, you've been playing this for your children. You've been playing this on repeat. It's talking about drugs, drinking, bitches, niggas, fuck, gun, crime. I got bags, Fendi, Gucci, and you're wondering why. It's like, no, it's been on repeat in the background, but it makes me feel good. Okay, great. So this,
mate, it's exactly the same lie as Santa Claus. I'm going to put them in the same principle. I know it's slightly off tangent, but it's the same. You're allowing the same frequencies to come into your children with the violence and the racism and the nefarianism, or whatever, however you say that. But in the same context, the same people are going, well, let's celebrate Santa Claus this year, and let's celebrate Christmas as a real thing. And it's the same lie that's allowing our children to grow up. In your case, you're referring it to the violent mentality, but it's also confusion.
Not even violent, just all of it. Just all of the different things. Listen to the message in the music. That's it.
Yeah.
People are like, well, I don't really listen to the words. I just listen to the music. And I'm like, right, it doesn't matter. It's still coming through at a frequency that is affecting your DNA, your soul, and your vibration, with a message that is resonating in the back of your head. Because you know what? Even though you say you don't listen to the lyrics, if I start to say the lyrics, you know them. Yeah. Guess how many songs you know that you're like, I don't even listen to the song, I know the lyrics.
Yeah, most. Because it goes in.
Yeah, programming.
It's so true.
We'll pick up. I just wanted to have this discussion with you in the moment. There are many things in this conversation and exchange that can be expounded upon. We'll give notes of consideration. Feel free to drop notes in the comments. I'm Christiano Can. This is Craig, and to be continued.